Most of you know I'm voting for Donald Trump in November. I've said so many times at this point, but I'm not just voting for Donald Trump. Next week, I will be co-hosting a fundraiser for him. I don't endorse candidates in Republican primaries, but I do tell you who I would have voted for. And I told you I would have voted for Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida if given the choice. But Ron DeSantis isn't the nominee. Donald Trump is the nominee. And he's facing Joe Biden, who is the worst president of my lifetime. Because Donald Trump is the nominee against Joe Biden, I won't just vote for him. I will walk over broken glass to vote for him. Actually, I will go into my own pocket to support him, which is what I'm doing.
Ben Shapiro, who has been very critical of Donald Trump, especially in recent months, has now declared that he will not only support Donald Trump, but he'll do it enthusiastically. In fact, go into his own finances and help support him financially. And Shapiro is also holding a fundraiser for Donald Trump. So that's really fascinating news, because I get finding yourself in a position where you have two candidates you can't stand. I'm in that position right now. Not gonna vote for either one of them, sorry. And if I were goaded into or pressured into supporting Biden, I wouldn't frame it in the way that Shapiro did there. I wouldn't talk about walking over broken glass in order to support Biden. I wouldn't talk about hosting a fundraiser to support Biden. So like, why is Shapiro going the extra mile on behalf of Donald Trump, someone who he has said some pretty negative things about?
Yeah, I think it's super obvious. So he's trying to get attention, I presumably both from his own audience, which I think is probably more relevant here, but maybe even from investors, funders, I don't know. Because once the primary is over, it happens on both sides, they circle the wagons, right? So a great example of this was Ted Cruz does not endorse Donald Trump in the 2016 RNC at the convention. And then the Mercers, who had given him $13 million in the primary, slammed a door in his face. And once he was spurned by his donors, he immediately turned around and endorsed Donald Trump and kissed his ass for the rest of the time. So if you don't circle the wagons, there are consequences. So, and also, but more likely it's his audience in this case. But there's consequences from your audience too. If you don't kiss Trump's ass, they get super mad at you. So it's not an accident that he's saying it in such a flamboyant way. So, okay, I can see saying, hey, look, I hate Biden if you're a right winger like Shapiro, so I'm gonna vote for Trump. Yeah, I can see that. I hate Trump, and so I am definitely not gonna vote for Trump, and it might force me to vote for Biden. I get that. But saying, I'll walk over broken glass, I'll do a fundraiser for him, I'll do anything for him, is basically saying, look at me, daddy, look at me. And here, I'm a good boy. Okay, congrats, you're a good boy.
So let's go to one more clip of him explaining himself, and then I have some pretty hilarious criticisms that Shapiro had against Donald Trump. Let's watch.
My calculus is really simple. America was better off under Donald Trump than it is under Joe Biden. At home, America was safer and more prosperous. When Donald Trump was president, we didn't have a war in Ukraine. When Donald Trump was president, we didn't have China threatening imminent blockade of Taiwan. When Donald Trump was president, America was better off. Now, as I've said, I will always be honest with you about Donald Trump. He was not my first choice in the primaries. He's a deeply flawed human. I've been open in my criticisms of Trump on both character and policy, and I'm not gonna stop criticizing Donald Trump when I disagree with him. I always will be honest about that, and I always will. That's my job. It's the job of all Americans, because Donald Trump, as a presidential candidate, works for us. But Donald Trump is the man standing between America and a second Joe Biden term. And a second Joe Biden term means America is in dire trouble. It is that simple. I encourage all of you who, like me, would have preferred another nominee for the GOP to recognize this is now a binary race. It is Trump or it is Biden. And unlike in 2016, we don't have to guess at what a Trump administration will be. We also don't have to guess what a Biden administration will be. We know. That's why I'm not just giving Donald Trump my vote, I'm giving him my money, because this election matters. And Donald Trump must be the next president of the United States.
Trump must be the next president of the United States. So, look, the one comment I'll make before I go to you, Cenk, is I don't understand why. I don't like Biden, as you guys know, right? But I don't understand placing blame for Putin's invasion of Ukraine on Biden. Like, what? So I don't understand, like, how do you could argue against the way Biden has responded to the war in Ukraine, but be specific about what you would critique there. But blaming Biden for Putin invading Ukraine makes no sense to me.
Well, look, that's because they're not. They're not doing an honest show. They're doing advocacy. So he's saying all these things that Biden, everything he did is wrong. That's absurd. So I don't have much love for Biden, but I can tell you what he did wrong and I can tell you what he did right. It's not that hard, right? Even with Trump, I can tell you a couple things he did right and a lot of things he did wrong. It's not that hard, but I think that the rest of the media, especially the talk shows, view themselves as advocates rather than truth tellers. So now he's turned into full-time advocate. Trump's the best on everything. You're gonna see he didn't always think that, and Biden's the worst. No, the Taiwan and China problems existed for a long, long time. I think that Trump exasperated them, but so did Nancy Pelosi by going to Taiwan needlessly, right? And so Trump made the Iran situation way worse by getting out of the peace treaty we had with him. So they went back to developing uranium. It was a disaster, but Ben's not gonna tell you that because he's advocating for a certain ideology, a certain candidate. And look, guys, I held my nose and voted for Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden in 2016 and 2020, despite all the terrible things they did in the primary, despite how unfair and how establishment and I can't stand them, etc., because Trump was worse. And I get that. But if I had come out and was like, I will walk over broken glass for Hillary Clinton.
That's insane.
Come on, come on, right? But our audience expects better. And unfortunately, a lot of audiences out there don't expect better. They just expect you to be subservient to whichever candidate that they favor.
So let's take a trip down memory lane. Let's go to March of 2016 when Shapiro wrote an opinion piece on Donald Trump and declared the following: I will never vote for Donald Trump. Here's why.
Oops.
Okay, then the subheadline: I will never vote for Donald Trump ever.
Oops. I count 2 nevers and an ever. Okay, now that's by never. What I really meant, you see what had happened was, I actually meant if it's convenient for me and I think that my audience really wants it or someone else does and I'm gonna make more money doing it, not only will I vote for him, I'll crawl over broken glass and stab myself with it for my beloved Donald Trump.
I can't help but think of Peter Griffin like nursing his hurt knee as he's like rocking back and forth going, repeatedly, okay? Like that's what I think of when I read the rest of Shapiro's 2016 piece. He also wrote in it, quote, I will never vote for Donald Trump because I stand with certain principles.
Do you?
I stand with small government and free markets and religious freedom and personal responsibility. Donald Trump stands against all of these things.
So at some point you did know what was true.
Let's go to graphic 4. I stand with the Constitution of the United States and its embedded protection of my God-given rights through governmental checks and balances. Donald Trump does not. I stand with conservatism. Donald Trump stands against it. I stand with never Trump. So things have changed during Trump's 2016 campaign. Shapiro called Trump a liar, an ignoramus, and someone with fewer brain cells than his average supporter has teeth. He also complained that Trump used language that appealed to the racist alt-right. And so what is really behind it? I'm gonna go back to what Cenk said and provide some reinforcement. Look, the Republican voters overwhelmingly support Trump. The Daily Wire puts out content that's meant to appeal to right-wing voters in the country. Right-wing voters aren't gonna like a show or a network of shows that are too critical of the presidential candidate that they prefer. So let's skip ahead to the 6th graphic here. Election year traffic to right-wing news websites. That's what you're looking at with this chart. And we highlighted Daily Wire for you. So apparently between January of 2020 and January of 2024, the Daily Wire has had a 73% decrease in their unique viewership. In January of 2020, it was 4,579 unique visitors. January of 2024, 1,248. So look, I don't know if viewership is what's really pushing Shapiro to back someone that he very clearly does not like. But look, again, it's one thing to back Trump because you look at the two options, and as a conservative Republican, Trump makes more sense for you. But again, the flamboyant, as Cenk put it, way in which Shapiro's doing this makes me think there's more behind this than just choosing the lesser of two evils.
Yeah, I can't help it. Fairest show in America. It's probably not because he's lost viewers because of his views on Trump. It's more likely because Facebook took the power of links away, and Daily Wire was huge on Facebook. Once Facebook de-emphasized news, all of those outlets had huge drops. Fair is fair. Okay, but Ben Shapiro, when he criticized Donald Trump, takes a lot of heat for it.
He does,
and he does say that, he admits that, right? So that phenomenon is real, it's probably just not shown in those exact numbers. Okay, and finally, to quote Princess Bride, when he says never, I do not think it means what you think it means.
Thanks for watching. If you become a member, you get to watch all this ad-free, except for, of course, this ad. Still, hit the join button below.